Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. And if you've been here, welcome again. I am Jackie Brenner, a pre-med student who has enjoyed meeting other STEM students from all around the world through my TikTok and Discord, STEMPotential. Again, I want to say I'm really sorry if this is like the 5th time you've heard this. Just got to do it. Before we get started, a few technical items. If your connection is lost, please simply log in again through the link on the Discord. Once the live viewing has concluded, we will post a link to the recording of the webinar on STEMPotential Discord next week. Also, we recommend you hide all non-video participants to clear up the screen. If you'd like to ask a question, please submit it at any time via the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We will collect these questions and answer as many as possible during the Q&A portion of our discussion. Now, before we proceed with the panel discussion, I would like to give you another brief introduction background about STEMPotential. While in school, many of my fellow pre-medical students, especially women, were hesitant or even afraid of pursuing their studies and career in STEM. They lacked access to mentors and information from professionals who were already in their careers. This led me to create STEMPotential, an online Discord that provides a network for all students to form immediate bonds, share unique perspectives from diverse backgrounds, and ask questions. Discord members can act as mentors and mentees as they progress along the stages of their education, while also finding friends with a common passion and interest. We envision a community of like-minded people who are excited to build their network and use every avenue to broaden their perspectives of STEM. As the saying goes, knowledge is power. Now, because March is Women's History Month, I am hosting this 2-day webinar event with a variety of female panelists. This is the last panel discussion, and I just wanted to give the opportunity for everyone to hear these amazing women's journeys in STEM. And now to our panelists. Please turn on your cameras and let us know if you're having any trouble. I am proud and humbled to have assembled a group of incredibly successful women. Each one will give a brief 5-minute overview about themselves, and then we will have a 25-minute Q&A. Ariana is pursuing a PhD in Earth and Planetary Science with a focus in atmospheric and climate science at Harvard University. She graduated from Texas A&M University with a BS in meteorology. Tamara is pursuing a master's in chemistry at California State University, San Marcos. She graduated from the same university with a BS in chemistry. Quincy graduated from Brown University with a BS in neuroscience and is currently a research assistant at Butler Hospital in Providence. Shelby is pursuing a PhD in organic chemistry and the University of South Carolina. She graduated from the University of Southern Mississippi with a BS in chemistry. So now to get started, Ariana, you can take it away.
Hi, I'm Ariana. Oh gosh, where do I start? Well, I'm a PhD student at Harvard, which is kind of cool. I got my bachelor's from Texas A&M University. I am also a part-time research assistant at NASA Langley, where my research, I'm looking at wildfire emissions and the chemistry behind that. And gosh, I guess a huge part of me in general is that I am a huge advocate for marginalized groups in STEM, for women, for the disabled community, for the LGBTQ and BIPOC communities. I identify as Latinx and disabled. And so that's just been a huge part of my journey, which I'll get into later. And things I like to do outside of work and school and all that jazz. I love to go hiking and walking, coffee, anything Star Wars related, and to rest and just take time for myself because self-care is important. And I'm so excited to be here. It is an immense privilege to be here with another group of phenomenal and fantastic women. And I'm so excited to have these conversations and to meet every single one of you. Thanks.
We're so excited to have you. Tamara?
Hi, everyone. I am also super excited to be here. My name is Tamara El-Hayek Ewing. El-Hayek, my maiden name, Ewing, my married name. I'm a first-generation master's graduate student, and I'm currently studying organometallic catalysis. Like Jackie said, I graduated with my BS in chemistry in 2016 from the same university. There I did chem education research. Following graduation, I interned at the National Renewable Energy Lab in Golden, Colorado, where I did materials, chemistry, and semiconductor research. I presented that research at NASA Ames and National Partners in Science Conference. Following all of that, I ended up teaching high school for 2 years and then decided that I wanted to pursue a PhD. But during my last year teaching, I got engaged. And so I reconsidered grad school and ultimately deferred and turned down a PhD offer. And then I started working as a lab manager, which is what I'm currently doing in academia, which is what funds my master's degree. I've been married for 2 years now. I have 2 dogs, a husky named Nala and a pit wolf mix named Odysseus. And as some of you may know, I really enjoy doing science communication and art, which I've channeled into my social medias, my Instagram and my TikTok. And earlier this year, I started a small business called Element and Molecule, where I create chemistry designs and sell stickers. So thanks again, Jackie, and all the STEMPotential team for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. And I love the periodic table in the background. Thank you for that. Now, Quincy.
Sure. So hello, everybody. My name is Quincy. I'm so excited to be here. So a little bit of background on me. I am from Prince Edward Island, Canada, but I moved to Providence and I did my undergrad degree in neuroscience at Brown. I graduated in 2018, and ever since then, I have been working in research at Butler Hospital in Providence, which is a freestanding psychiatric hospital. So I spend my time with 2 different labs. The first lab, we research physiological changes following early life stress. So we study populations who have histories of maltreatment and other stressors in childhood, and we look at changes in their metabolic function and their HPA axis function and all sorts of different things. So that research is really interesting. And the other lab that I work with studies novel approaches for treating treatment-resistant depression. So I work a lot with transcranial magnetic stimulation devices, which are sort of interesting. We also do studies with ketamine for depression. Those are sort of like where my research interests lie. Though I am not a grad student like these other awesome women on the panel, I do hope to eventually pursue a PhD in neuroscience. So that's where I am now. And one sort of like a fun thing about me, something that is like a big part of my personality, is that I'm a dog mom. So I have I have a 12-year-old beagle. His name is Hoover, and he is a problem, but also very cute. So we keep him. So thank you again for having me. I'm looking forward very much to the panel.
No, amazing. And a small background, Quincy was my first squash coach. So I met her years ago, and I gotta say, I haven't seen you since then, so I love the hair.
Yes, COVID choices.
Happens. And last but not least, Shelby.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that great introduction. I'm Shelby. I am from Mississippi. I'm from a small town in South Mississippi. I got my bachelor's degree, as Jackie mentioned, at USM, where I majored in chemistry, and I got a minor in mathematics. I started research actually as a freshman, which is unusual, and the reason why is you don't know anything. You still don't know anything when you join the lab. I started in an inorganic lab, and then I quickly switched to an organic lab after taking organic chemistry. And I spent 3 years in that research. And then I actually participated in a research experience for undergraduates, or an REU program at the University of Memphis, where I did some computational chemistry. And now I am finishing my PhD in organic chemistry at the University of South Carolina. And I've done a lot of different types of research, not just from undergrad, but also in grad school. And yes, I actually taught organic chemistry. I taught a lecture last semester. So some of you guys are interested in being a college professor, I can talk to you guys about that. That was what I wanted to do originally. Now I am trying to graduate. If anyone's in grad school, they understand that struggle. And I'm interviewing at different companies trying to get an industry position. And I actually have been trying to pick up gardening with my dog. dogs are important in grad school, as you can see with our panel. I have a 2.5-year-old German Shepherd that I got after I passed my candidacy, and have not regretted it at all. And so, yeah, so learning how to grow things.
Well, I'm super excited to dive into this Q&A session. We have so much to talk about, and you all come from such diverse backgrounds and different interests, so this is going to be so much fun. Just a quick reminder for everyone, you can ask questions in the chat, and we're going to try to get to all of your questions. And after, I have some questions I prepared in advance, so after each question, we'll ask one panelist, or if any of you guys can jump in and then just follow after one another, that would be great. So to start off, I think my first question has to be, who or what was your biggest inspiration for choosing the career that you're in today?
I'll go ahead and start. I want to give a shout out to my high school chemistry teacher. I actually did not enjoy chemistry when I was in high school, but I ended up taking 2 years of chemistry with him because he was just such an awesome, and like he was so passionate about what he was doing that it made me feel like it was a valuable and worthwhile pursuit. So I ended up going into my bachelor's majoring in biochemistry because I felt the way that he explained to me, I was like, there's no way that this isn't the coolest, most important thing, even if I don't know it yet. So he was definitely instrumental in encouraging me to pursue chem.
I can go next. I would say for me, what sort of led me down a research route is I started as a pre-medical student, and I was really interested in clinical work, and I still am, but I found so much excitement from sort of this like idea of being innovative and creative and developing novel things. So I feel like that it was sort of my inspiration for going down a more research-oriented route.
I guess I'll go. I guess for me, it's not really anyone in particular. It's more of a personal experience in my childhood. I'd always wanted to be a meteorologist, which is a really cliche thing that you hear in my field. But a tropical storm made landfall in Texas when I was a kid, and my house flooded and I lost everything. And I realized, wow, like weather and atmospheric science is a force greater than what humans can control. And I had so many questions. So that led me to pursue my meteorology degree. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it until I took an atmospheric chemistry class and I got involved with research, and I'm here now. So yeah, I guess thanks to Dr. Collins, he was my professor for that class, but yeah.
All right, I guess it's my turn. I got distracted by the chat. So I actually really liked my parents. They never had any influence in terms of what I wanted to do. I would say, hey, this sounds cool. And they're like, okay, fine. I got interested in chemistry in high school. Lots of high school chemistry teachers that did a great job. Science demos are awesome. When I went to college, I really liked teaching. I did in high school, I did some tutoring. So I told my academic advisor that I wanted to teach college students because there's a little bit more flexibility in how you teach and how you can do your classes. And they're like, you need to go to grad school. I was like, what's grad school? And that kind of started that process. There was a lot of professors in my undergrad who said, you should do research for us. Come join our lab. And I was like, no, that sounds really hard. And it took a year, but my Gen Chem professor got me in his inorganic lab. Had no idea what I was doing. I do now. And then I took organic chem and I loved it. And my academic advisor was my organic teacher. He convinced me to join his lab. And really, it's just been pushing me to keep going, keep doing research and stuff. And basically, every mentor I've had has pushed me and encouraged me to keep going in my career. And I would say that, I think, Jackie, you're going to ask me this question later, but I'm really starting to see why they were doing that and trying to encourage me to pursue these different types of research opportunities.
No, I just want to echo what you said about like always keep going and, you know, giving yourself that encouragement. And I'm seeing so many great questions in the chat that I want to get to. But before I mention that question by Talia, I wanted to say, what's the biggest obstacle you've faced thus far, which can probably guide our discussion towards like mental health and other things. So what's the biggest obstacle you faced thus far in, you know, college or grad school, whatever it is?
Where do I start? I could write a book about this, honestly. Unfortunately, ableism and racism are rampant in STEM and academia. I got diagnosed with multiple mental illnesses in the middle of undergrad. And to, I guess, talk about the intersectionality between the two, I also felt this underlying pressure to prove myself as a Latinx individual. And so I've had to learn that unfortunately people aren't going to advocate for me. And I've had to learn to self-advocate and stand up for myself because it can be really lonely sometimes. And so I guess coping with that, I found a lot of communities on Twitter. The disabled community is fantastic. Advocacy with the BIPOC community and the LGBTQ community, that's kind of kept me sane, and community has been really important. But yeah, like it's really unfortunate, and I've had some not so great experiences, but they've helped me advocate for myself, and is a really big reason why I am where I am in my career. So yeah.
I can go next. I would say for me, I was, when I was an undergrad in college, I really wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. So I stayed on the pre-medical path, and I was putting myself under a lot of pressure and stress and anxiety, as many a pre-med student does, as well as, you know, other students in STEM and otherwise. But I got to a point where I took the MCAT and I didn't do as well as I had hoped. And I kind of felt like my world was crumbling around me. I felt like everything was going off course. And I think what I learned from that actually is that because I didn't do as well as I had hoped, and that sort of threw off my plans to apply and my desired timeline, it actually gave me an opportunity to double down on the research work that I was doing and kind of focus in on my job and, you know, pushing myself to do other things. And through that experience, I think is really sort of how I found my passion for the research that I do now. And it gave me some time. I didn't give myself any time to reflect on what I was doing and why I was doing it. And so at the time it felt like, you know, my world was ending, but it ultimately actually led me down a path that I find to be much more fulfilling based on my interests. And so I think, yeah, that was probably my biggest sort of thing to overcome in the process of my career.
I guess along those lines, I'm seeing a couple messages in the chat. Maybe we can expand on the discussion of coping with imposter syndrome. It came up in a couple other webinars we had, and I think that's such an important discussion, and especially all of you coming from such diverse backgrounds and also different parts of STEM. I'd be so interested to hear each one of you kind of share your views on that.
I can take that one if that's okay.
Oh,
or Tamara,
I'll go after you, Shelby.
Okay, cool. So I mentioned I was from South Mississippi, and there's a lot of views on Mississippi, as I'm sure all of us know. I think I've always felt like the dumbest person in the room for that reason. When I was taking Gen Chem, people talk about acetone, ethyl acetate, and I would be like, I don't know what any of that is. And so I wouldn't know basic common names for organic structures when all of my classmates seemed to. I was like, I'm already behind, and it's day one. That feeling never goes away. You always feel like the dumbest person in the room. I've actually talked I've been on a couple of the grad panels, and we've talked about this, how you're always going to feel that way. And the most important thing to remember is, so does the person next to you. There's not ever a single person in the room that doesn't feel that way. And you will learn so much more by asking the questions you want to ask. And you're going to find a lot of people might be grateful to do that because they're just as scared to ask those questions. I actually train a lot of undergrads in my chem lab, and I tell them, I don't care what question you have. If it's a dumb question, that's even better, because you asking questions lets me know where you are and what I need to do to help you. And so don't be shy to do that. Don't be scared to look dumb. We all do. I can tell you lots of stories where I was pretty dumb, but I'm still here. So.
Yeah, Shelby, I really resonate with that. There's essentially two things I want to talk about. One of them is, as a first generation student, meaning both my parents don't have degrees, you don't really know what expectations to have for yourself. So you go into academia or your lab environment and you're looking around at everyone else to try to give you some semblance of like what you should and should not know. And not very many people are open about how much they don't know. So you're sitting there like, am I supposed to know this? How did anyone else find this out? And so you're stuck there wondering, constantly questioning whether or not your level of intelligence or your level of understanding is where it should be. And that starts to eat away at you. So understanding how to contextualize your experience and knowing that just because you don't know now doesn't mean that you won't know ever, and getting comfortable with just being like, well, I don't know. Let me ask the question, and cycling through that and just slowly, day by day, getting better and better. Your only competition is yourself from yesterday, right? That's really the mentality. And then the other thing I wanted to address was the fact that in my introduction, I talked about how I turned down a PhD program and chose to pursue a master's instead. When I tell people this, sometimes they look at me like, why would you do that? Like, that sounds like a horrible decision. Like, if you got into a PhD program, you know how many people work so hard to get into a PhD program? Ultimately, it makes me feel like what I'm pursuing is lesser than in a lot of people's eyes. And so I had to sit and cope and struggle with understanding that my path is my own, and I'm choosing to do this because it works better for me. And even though I'm not a PhD or I'm not doing research like at the top tier, whatever the situation is, that what I'm still doing and learning is valuable and more fulfilling for me in the long run because it's my path and what I chose to do.
I think echoing off of what you were saying, Tamara, and moving into a lot of what's been said in the chat, I wanted to ask, how has being a woman or part of an underrepresented group influenced your experience? And what advice do you have for someone who's in this position right now and feels stuck or is trying to find a mentor? I know that is a huge part, especially during COVID. How do you get out there, find the confidence, and deal with all of the stresses right now, especially in a field that's like research can be so hard sometimes, you know, in terms of just finding that research opportunity. So I'll leave it there. And
I'll talk really quickly on the woman in STEM portion of the question, because it's something I've addressed a couple of times on my TikToks and something that I truly don't understand as a limiting factor for me. I was always led to believe, both by my parents and people that I've, you know, interacted with personally, that there's no limitation for me. And I never went in with that mentality. And so when I was confronted by people who questioned me or were intimidated by me, I never viewed it as a limitation. I viewed it as a power to be able to say that I am a woman in STEM and I'm doing all of these things. And your opinion of my gender or sex has no relationship to what I'm able to do in the lab or in academia. I let my work speak for myself, and I just channel that and focus on that more than anything else.
I can speak to the finding a mentor component a little bit, because I know in my experience that was something that was really challenging about sort of getting started in research, because there are no clear kind of guidelines for how that kind of thing works. But something that I really struggled with as an undergrad student was just sending that initial email out to a faculty mentor to say like, hello. I would just find myself like totally paralyzed and unable to do that. But after working with several different PIs in different fields, it's really opened my eyes to the fact that like PIs and other mentors are people too. They are not as intimidating as they seem when you're first starting out. So I think that looking back, I think it would have been really helpful for me to keep that in mind when sending out those initial emails to folks who are doing work that you're interested in, you know, people you might want to meet with and ask questions to. Just keep in mind that, you know, you don't have to fret over that process. They hear from tons of people all the time, and I encourage it to, you know, I encourage everyone to kind of get out of their comfort zone a little bit in that sense. I think that's something that I could have done a little more of when I was an undergrad.
I guess I can speak a bit about finding the right mentor in terms of dealing or seeing a lack of representation and acknowledgement of underrepresented groups. So undergrad was a struggle. I had a lot of mentors who didn't really understand where I was coming from or my experiences, and it was really difficult to relate to my mentors sometimes, or they didn't understand, like, me struggling with mental illness doesn't dictate how I can be a scientist or a student. Like, it doesn't dictate my abilities or my capabilities. And so whenever I was applying for graduate school, I made it a point to basically put everything on the table, like, hey, like, here's what's going on, but like, I can still get the work done. It doesn't change that. And so that was immensely helpful. I figured out really quick whenever I was applying to schools who I wanted to work with or who I didn't want to work with. And so that kind of solidified it for me. In terms of being in programs where there's a lack of representation, I've been there. It's difficult. It can feel lonely. And that's completely valid. And I'm sorry that if any of y'all are dealing with that or struggling with that right now, like, I just want you to know that you're valid and that you're not alone. There's other people who are in the same boat as you. And so I've taken comfort on the internet and Twitter and finding other friends who are on this journey with me. I have a lot of awesome internet friends in the disabled and BIPOC communities, and at different programs and schools around the world. And it's just been really great. And yeah, I could honestly write a book about that, and my mind's going 1,000 miles per second, but I think that's all I can say for right now.
Kind of echoing off of what Ariana said so eloquently, on how whatever you're dealing with doesn't dictate any of your abilities, and you all are so impressive. So not letting any of that get in the way, I think, is so important. So obviously there's so much discussion also on burnout. So what are some tips you have in terms in that arena of, you know, pushing through, and, you know, if you have a bad day, how do you deal with it? How do you bounce back?
I can talk about that. Or why don't you go first? I went first last time. Yeah, you go.
Okay. All right. So burnout is something that I experience so often because, you know, dealing with, you know, getting married and then having dogs and then learning how to, you know, run a home and then my master's and my small business, and there's so much stuff on the plate, right? And I'm also doing, you know, the social media stuff. So there's that too. My number one thing for dealing with burnout is you have to learn how to be really disciplined with your time and your energy. And you have to know yourself well enough to know what things really recharge you and versus what distracts you. So I'm not the best at this. I'm no expert. These are just things that I found as I've gone through the process of learning and growing and trying to deal with burnout better. But I found sometimes, you know, after a super long day, I will jump on TikTok or I'll jump on Instagram and I'll just start scrolling. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, I'm just, you know, I'm taking a break. But what you don't realize is that you're not really taking a break. You're just distracting yourself because you're dealing with so much. So you have to figure out what are the things that actually give you energy? What are the things that actually calm you down? What are the things that are meeting your physiological, mental, social, emotional needs so that you can bounce back the next day? Don't fall into the vicious cycle of, you know, doom scrolling or distraction constantly, because then you will still feel behind constantly. So that is a personal thing for other people. But what I found is like attending to the dogs, making sure my house is clean, eating well and properly. Like those are things that genuinely give me the energy I need to continue and balance everything that I'm trying to balance.
Yeah, so as a fifth year grad student, I deal with burnout constantly now that I'm in that last leg and trying to finish my PhD. And I got to start facing the fact I have to write a dissertation on top of wrapping everything up. And it's hard mentally, as these other ladies have mentioned. It's hard, and you have those days where you just want to quit. We call it the third year slump, where you're just ready to, you don't want to do it anymore. And having those things, having a healthy lifestyle helps a lot. Like she was saying, eating well, taking the breaks you need to, like I think sometimes, especially in the STEM fields, we get caught up in this idea, if I'm not working 80 hours a week, then what am I doing? That's not true. There's a lot of shame that goes into, if you're not constantly working, then you're not doing your job, and that's just not true. I very much keep a very set schedule, and when I follow that schedule, I feel a lot better and I'm actually more productive. There's a lot of times, and I have friends who support me in that and are very healthy with that. There'll be times like, oh, I need to go to lab, I'm supposed to get this done. And they're like, how do you feel right now? Like, are your hands good enough to actually do the experiment? Or is it better if you go home and get a good night's sleep and do it tomorrow? And often the answer is, I need to go home and get some rest because I've been working too long right now. And so my dog helps a lot. And it's just, it's not so much distracting yourself, but it's taking time to take care of yourself. You don't have to think about work 24/7 to be a good grad student or other position. You need to be a person still. You don't have to give up your personality to do well in this field.
I have one other thing to add on a slightly different note, which is that sometimes I feel like the research process can become seemingly, monotonous at times, or it feels like you're like kind of climbing this never-ending like hill, and you're like, when is this going to be, when am I going to have my groundbreaking, findings that are going to change the world kind of feeling, which is something that, I struggle with, and it sort of ebbs and flows. But I would love to share a little anecdote. On Friday, I attended a talk by this person. He's a MD, PhD, he's a psychiatrist. His name is Dr. Mohammed Sharif. And his research was so fascinating to me, just the way that he was using these computational models to understand these different, treatments. And I was like so pumped up about it. And I was talking to my PI following the talk, and I said to her, like, I had to resist the urge to like unmute myself on Zoom and just say, I love science into the microphone, because I was just so pumped up by what he was doing. And it made me realize that I haven't really had that feeling in a little while. And it occurred to me, like, it's important to make sure that you're having those like I love science moments. And kind of remind yourself like why you're doing what you're doing, and what you are ultimately working towards, which is one day doing this really awesome research. So something that I'm personally going to try to implement is seeking out those I love science moments more often.
I guess one last thing I'd like to add, this is coming from me. I've had to withdraw from school for mental health reasons. So like I've been truly burnt out, like to seek treatment. What I wish someone told me a long time ago when entering STEM, because it's a culture where people want to work hard, they want to do well, they're willing to lose sleep and prioritize work and research over our own well-being. I wish someone told me that I'm worthy of self-care, I'm worthy of rest, and I am worthy of did I say taking care of myself? Anyways, I'm worthy of all those things, and so are you. Like, you need to take care of yourself before you get your work done. And there's going to be days where it's rough. Bad days happen, and it's okay if they happen, because other people around you too are having bad days. Sometimes I have more bad days than good days. And, you know, just little things like making a nice meal or having a nice coffee, they go a long way. Just, you know, little things add up. Getting that extra hour of sleep. And so I just want you to know, like, you're worthy of those things, and that it's so important to take care of yourself. And I really wish I knew that a long time ago. It's stressful, but finding a balance is possible. It's not always going to be balanced. Sometimes you're just like on a violent seesaw, like, when will this end? But just know that, like, you're worthy of those things.
Again, echoing off what everyone has said, especially Ariana at the end of, you know, doing, and Tamara as well, you know, making that good meal for yourself, or as Shelby said, you know, being with your dog. This idea of staying present came up in other discussions as well. Reminding yourself that you are a person outside of your research, while also finding those science moments, like Quincy said. So I was wondering, maybe some of you, if you want, can share maybe a day in a life that you go through, and tips on staying organized, on how to balance that. Taking a bad day, what do you do? When it's a really good day, you're, you know, reminding yourself to get back on track. What's the advice there?
To help me stay organized, this is a system I do. I have a list. So one of the things that to help me with my day is I like to sit down and just figure out what I have to get done to that day. And I have a list I make. And not everything on that list has to get done that day. If it does, it's a great day. If the important things get done, it's still a great day. It's all about that regulation, like we talked about, and where you are, because you need to check in with yourself to make sure you are doing well, or if you do need to take those mental health days. And so that's how I figure out which ones are going to take the longest in my day, and those get started first, and the short, quick ones, because I know that I work best in the mornings and I'm a little bit slower in the afternoon. So I get what has to get done or takes longest in the morning, and then go from there. And then the next day I look at it and I organize what needs to get done. And so that's how I kind of keep track of what is going on with my projects. There was, at one point, I was working on 3 different projects at the same time, and I was training 3 different people, and it was very overwhelming. And so I started making them keep a list. So I'm like, this is what I need you to do today. This is what I need you to do today. This is what we're going to learn today. And so just keeping track of that. And it's basically taking all of this stuff and kind of making it more contained or more manageable than just getting overwhelmed with everything. Because in grad school, and it depends on the school you go to, your second semester of your first year, for us, we were teaching classes, we were in the lab for the first time, and we were taking classes. So that was a lot, and that helped a lot with that.
I want to add to what Shelby said. So the first thing about writing stuff down so that you don't get overwhelmed has been so instrumental in me just feeling like I'm capable of handling what it is I need to handle. A lot of times I keep it up in my head, and then I'm running through all the different avenues that all of these things can go. And when there's so many things on the plate, it's really, really hard to tell yourself to stop thinking. So that I 100% agree with. Write it down. If you're good with a planner, do that. If you're good with a blank sheet of paper every day, do that. If you're better with putting it in a note in your phone or a reminder in your phone, do that. But have a place where you don't have to keep it in your mind, and you can free up that immediate mental space and know that you're not going to forget about something later on. To the other point, I actually do something opposite of what Shelby does when I am not in a good place starting off. So when I'm, feeling really great about my life and my day, and I have this energy, I am like, yes, let's tackle the hard stuff. I'm there with you. But a lot of times when I'm in a more depressed or more difficult place in my life, I like to switch that around and do the easier stuff first. Because if you can start something, you can get that snowball going. Sometimes you hit a wall, you're burnt out, you're crashed, and the thought of doing anything challenging is like, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to do those. So there are days sometimes where I just say, if I can get up this morning, walk to the kitchen, not go on my phone first thing, and make myself coffee and breakfast, that's a good start to my day. Once I do that, maybe I feel a little bit better. Maybe I remember to pack a lunch. Maybe that makes me feel a little bit better. I have enough energy to read a paper or call somebody or do a load of laundry. And starting to build that momentum then gets me into the mode of like, okay, I've accomplished some things. I can accomplish some things. Now let me tackle those difficult things. So the checking in with yourself is so important. Where are you at emotionally, mentally, physically, and work with where you're at. Don't fight where you're at. If you're feeling down and discouraged and you're telling yourself, I have to get up and do this work, I have to do it, you're not going to get there because you're mentally not able to. So work with where you're at and find the paths to getting what you need to get done. And it won't look the same every day.
I guess going off of that idea, I think something so important is also, you guys are all so incredibly successful. And even through all of the hardship, you still get everything done that you need to. You know, there are obstacles, but you are getting through it. And I think something so hard for kids in undergrad or even high school is, how do you find that passion and remind yourself that, like, even despite a bad day, like, you know, I need to find that passion because that's what's going to push me through. So throughout undergrad or even high school, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to find that passion and like can't? Because I know that can be a really difficult thing, because that is one of the things that, you know, for me personally keeps me going.
Yeah, so I didn't know what I was going to do in high school at all. I was not the best student in high school. Like, being at Harvard, like if someone told me in high school I would end up at Harvard, I'd be like, shut up, you're lying. And it's okay if you don't know what you want to do right now. Like, it's okay if you're just sitting here like, you're like, I love science and I want to do something with that, because I went into undergrad just not knowing what to do. And my advice to that is just try new things that you don't think you would like. Like, for an example, with my atmospheric chemistry class, I hated general chemistry so much. Like, me personally, I hated it. I barely passed it. Like, I just couldn't do it. But whenever I took that class, my mind changed. Like, it shifted. Like, my world shifted. And so, you know, trying different things, meeting new people, like, you know, just because like I'm a PhD student doesn't mean I have it all figured out or my life's together, and it's okay to be in shambles sometimes. And so I think that's the advice I give. Like, it's okay if you're just going off of I love science, or for me it was I love clouds, and I kind of just coasted for a bit. And you don't have to have it all figured out right away, because things change with experience, and what you were going for, you know, in high school or even going into college as a freshman, it can totally change. And that's okay. Change is good sometimes, and you know, you grow.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Shelby, go ahead. Okay. All right. Quickly to that end, I actually did my undergraduate honors thesis on bioacoustics, and I worked with bats. And now I work in a psychiatric hospital. So you really never know which way the wind will blow you, but that's part of the fun. And I think it's scary and doesn't feel good at the time. Absolutely. But I think trusting in that, and if you're following what's interesting you at the time, what's exciting you at the time, that's what's going to land you in something that feels fulfilling. So sort of circling back to something that Tamara said, like, don't feel like you have to force it. You know, if you're feeling like you're forcing it too much, like, you know, give yourself the time and the opportunity to explore other things, because you never know what will stick.
So I actually want to combine what Quincy said earlier and now, and what Ariana just said. So find those moments where you love science. I can tell you right now, there were a lot of times I hated my research so much. I would show up and be like, I don't want to do any of this. And then even tomorrow, there were days where I'm like, I just went home. I was like, it's not going to happen today, and I need to do something that can happen. One thing that helped me a lot, so I was told to go to grad school because I wanted to be a college professor. Not the best excuse to go to grad school. And what helped me a lot was outreach, which is a little bit more intricate with COVID now, but going to a middle school and doing science demonstrations and completely wowing kids at just like a basic color change, or getting them to ask questions about the difference between liquid nitrogen versus dry ice, and just getting them excited got me excited, because I was like, this is really cool stuff. Like, yeah, I'm doing basic things, but it got me excited about my research again. So like, just briefly, I did a photocatalysis project. I played with lights in organic chemistry. That's something you usually do in analytical or physical, like they do laser stuff. And so I had little kids be like, whoa, you turned a light on and something happened? And I was like, yeah, that's what I do. And so, yeah, just finding those things, like, why are you passionate about this? Why did you want to do this? Like, what did you want to do? It's not the expectations of other people that are where you are. You actually wanted to do this, or this is where you wanted to be.
Going off of doing what you want to do, I wanted to ask, I talked to Tamara about this a little bit about a week ago, and she expressed to me how you don't have to get a PhD. You do it because you want to, or like Quincy was saying, you wanted to go to medical school, but things change, and change is good, like Ariana said. So what is, maybe Tamara can start us off on this question, because I know she wanted to speak about this, and then if anyone wants to jump in after, but really maybe hitting on the fact of how do you find where you fit in and what path you should take, especially when it's so hard to find a mentor and someone who understands you, like Ariana said as well.
Yeah, so when I was in an undergrad, I did not know what grad school was, but I knew that everybody around me was either going to med school or grad school. So I felt this immense pressure that that's what I had to do in order to be successful in the field of STEM. And again, being a first gen student, the biggest hardship is you just don't know what you don't know. If everybody acts like something is normal, you just kind of learn to accept that. And it becomes difficult to discern what is truly out there. Finding a good mentor is absolutely integral to being able to understand what there is beyond school. A good mentor is not going to push you in any one direction. They're going to push you to look inward and figure out who you are and what you need, not what they have in mind for you. So that was one of the biggest things, one of the biggest reasons why I ended up not pursuing a PhD was I realized it wasn't going to get me to an ultimate goal that I wanted. It was just going to be a thing that I did because I felt like I had to. And it was one of the most difficult decisions of my entire life, turning down that PhD, because I had, people expecting me to get it. I had told people I was going for it. I was leaving teaching high school. So all of my students thought that I was going to go do that. They were all like, wow, she's doing her PhD. And I had to face all of that and say, these are expectations that everyone else has for me, that this is not really working for me. So I just want to encourage anyone out there that is feeling pressure from outside sources of what other people are telling you to do or think you should do, to try to quiet those voices as much as you can, or pick and choose, cherry pick as much as you possible, but really understand who you are, what you need. Like Ariana and others have said, explore, be curious. Don't assume that because other people are doing something that you have to as well follow that path. There's so many things you can do with just a high school degree in STEM. There's so many things you can do with just a bachelor's, master's, PhD, all of that. They're different paths. Everybody is on their own path. So just remember that.
What was the question again? I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm scattered.
No, you're good. I think I was just trying to, Tamara expressed to me how important it is to follow your passion rather than the pressures of, so just expressing like what made you go into the PhD or not go into other things.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to be sure. I grew up with my dad telling me to do what you love. And And so that's kind of been my mantra, I guess, going into undergrad and pursuing my PhD. I think the one thing that just really set it apart was that I loved research. And I think what was so integral about it is that I didn't really have any mentors or people telling me what to do, especially since I'm one of the first in my family to pursue a STEM degree. I didn't know how any of it worked. So I had to ask around, like, hey, how does this work? And put myself out there, and, you know, go for it, go for things that I don't think I could possibly do, or like, oh, this is too prestigious for me, or things like that. Like, be bold. You just never know what's going to happen. And that's how I ended up at NASA for 3 summers. And that's how I got involved with research. And I learned that I loved research. And that's such a huge thing. If you want to get a PhD, it's like 5-6 years of working on the same thing. So that was just a huge thing for me. And like I said, your interests change over time, and like, that's okay. Speaking on what people like expectations people have of me, like, do what you want to do. Like, if it's fulfilling for you and it's bringing you joy and it's filling your soul up and you're passionate about it, I say go for it. I've had people, especially just as women, and some of my other colleagues have been told things by professors or mentors, like, I think this is what's best for you. Only you know what's best for you. You know, people only have a glimpse of a little part of your life. You know, just because they have a glimpse of a small chapter of your life doesn't mean they know the whole story. And so, yeah.
I can talk a little about that too. So I went to grad school because I wanted to teach college. That's changed. I'm applying for industry positions now. That is very different from what I thought I was going to be 4 years ago. But I told you, no, that's not going to happen. And that is because self-reflection is amazing, and you need to be doing it like consistently to realize how much you've grown and how hard you've worked to get where you are, because it's okay to be proud of yourself. I've realized, being the senior grad student in my lab for the last 2 years, all of my lab mates graduated in my 3rd year grad school. So as a 3rd year, I had to know everything about the lab for the new people coming in. That was scary. That was really scary, because I was like, I don't know anything. And then I started helping them. I started helping them with their projects. I was like, wait a second, I know something. I know these things. And that's when I started thinking, you know, I really like how much I've learned. I like how my problem solving skills have really progressed, and I want to keep doing this. I want to keep growing. I want to keep challenging myself. And that's kind of what started pushing me towards industry. It was nobody else. Nobody else asked me that. A lot of people wanted me to do that, but I was like, sounds hard, don't want to do it. And that's one thing. Whenever I was applying for PhD programs, there was about 4 weeks in my fall semester doing applications where I had a meltdown. I was like, do I want to do a research PhD, or do I want to do a science education PhD? I want to teach, so it makes sense to go education. But all of these people are telling me to go into the research PhD. Which one do I don't know what to do. And, you know, and there's something I've told myself, that if I have a choice, and the reason why I'm not doing one of those is because I'm too scared to try it, that's not a good enough reason to not do it. And so one thing that helped me make that decision was my love of presenting my research. So I think someone asked how to help prepare their talk or prepare for their first defense. And I responded to you, but the joy you have at presenting your research for the first time is just, it doesn't compare. Because you realize many things in that moment. One, you know what you're doing, you know your topic, and you are the smartest person in the room about that topic in that moment. I remember my first conference that I presented at, my advisor came in, and we had a good relationship. He came into the lab and he was like, hey, I want you to present at this thing. The abstract's due at 5 o'clock. I was like, okay. And he's like, I want you to do a poster. And I was like, okay. And then he came back 10 minutes later and was like, no, I want you to do an oral presentation, which is the PowerPoint slides. And I was like, no, because I had a fear of public speaking. I was like, nope, I black out when I talk. He's like, no, you're doing that. And I was like, no, I did that. And I ended up winning first place at that conference. And I was blown away by that. And I loved it. I loved talking about it. And the questions that I got asked by other professors, I was like, oh, I know that answer. I can tell you why we did that. I can tell you why we looked at this structure over this one. And it's going to blow you away by how much you know. And that passion about talking about science is why I went more the research route, because I have opportunity, and you still do with science education. Tamara could probably tell you a lot more about those opportunities, I think. I'm assuming, sorry, but I've presented at a lot of conferences, and that feeling of just such satisfaction at, this is my work, I did this, it just doesn't compare.
Well, it is 5:18 and I have to be cognizant of the time, even though I would like to keep you all here tonight, but I cannot do that. But I just want to end by saying, hearing all of your journeys, not only could I probably write a book like Ariana is going to one day about everything, but this has been such an amazing experience because, as you know, on TikTok or just in life in general, you can only hear bits and pieces about someone's life. But Ariana and Tamara, all of you really stress how important it is to see the big picture. So each one of you have provided such incredible advice for everyone who's listening today. And for me, the biggest advice you guys all gave me was, problem solving, not only letting yourself go out and do what you love, but working on that within as well. And while finding a community, like I have been so lucky and fortunate to with all of you in STEMPotential, also trusting and listening to yourself, which is something I still struggle with. So I want to thank all of the panelists today so much. And just a reminder that this has been recorded, so we will be putting it up and the link will go in the Discord. I was wondering if each of you could leave your contact information in the chat, just in case anyone wants to reach out, your TikToks or Instagrams or anything else. And I just want to say thank you again to everyone, especially Allie. Can you come here? As you know, Allie is server mom. She put this whole entire thing together. Come in the frame. And also a big thank you to Ashini, who is my best friend, partner in crime, and also to everyone in the Discord who has helped put this entire weekend together, reaching out to other people. Chem God, Jane, who brought in Shelby. I just want to say thank you to the whole team as well. So thank you all again, and hopefully we will chat soon because just as Ariana said, she's going to be writing a book and I will be reading it, but we need to discuss more before that. Thank you again, everyone. And
thanks so much for hosting this, Jackie, and
Thank you
inviting
so
me.
much.
See you guys on TikTok.